Jacob Bloom's former ASI president at Humboldt State.
Hi. So, thanks for having me. My name is Jacob. And I'm going to talk to you about why I got involved with student government, my experience in student government, and how this led me to work with the California Student Union. Then I'll go over some resources the California Student Union can offer you. And let's get into it. A quick disclaimer. I know Associated Students as Associated Students, not Associated Students Incorporated. So if I call it AS instead of ASI, I'm not sure which one y'all go by. I kind of interchange the two. So, do you all want to help me save the world?
Yes.
Yeah. So my major 6.5 years ago, when I was a freshman at HSU, if you had asked me, I'd tell you I didn't know. I just wanted to help save the world. This developed. I eventually tried to make my own major. Interdisciplinary major is going to be a mixture of political science, ethnic studies, and communication. And I started in 08. But in 09, the budget cuts hit. The budget cuts happened in 08, 09, and 09 they hit. My classes got canceled, professors were furloughed and got pay cuts, class sizes doubled, and my major got canceled. They canceled the interdisciplinary program on our campus. I was pretty mad. Then somebody in my class came in from AS and asked me to vote. And I asked them, what does AS do? They said they organize events and represent students. I asked, how had they been representing me with all this stuff that's going down? How are they organizing students to have our needs met in this times of crisis? They couldn't answer. Then my girlfriend's major got canceled and she had to move out of town to pursue it. This freed up a bunch of my time and made me even more upset. Tuition was skyrocketing and the education quality was just going down the drain. I took a political science class where we had to do a political action project, and I decided I wanted to replace AS. My professor said there was a huge niche for that because they were not serving students, and everybody was pretty upset. But that wasn't to happen directly through that class. We went on a field trip to tour grassroots organizations in Santa Rosa, and on that van ride, me and the people really bonded, and we decided to start the Normal Club for our project. That is the National Organization Reform of Marijuana Law Club. And Normal quickly became a powerhouse on our campus. There wasn't much fraternities at the time, and we became the dominant community organization. We had a writer for our school newspaper who was also publishing an underground newsletter who then became the editor of our school paper. We had an AS at Large council member. We had the president of the Dorms and Residence Hall Association. And we had a high-ranking position in the AS program who then became the director of that program. I was propagated to a seat on our student union's board of directors and then got a spot on as a newsletter editor for one of our AS programs, and then became AS president. On a funny note, when I was AS president, it seemed most of the presidents belonged to fraternities and sororities, but I was from Normal, Humboldt, yeah. So through my work starting Normal, and then another club, I got to know the heads of our club's office really well. They helped me with tons of organizing, with the clubs and events, and they gave me the most help I had ever found on our campus. They frequently closed the door so nobody could eavesdrop on our conversations, and they broke down the corruption plaguing our university to me. They showed me pictures of amazing campus-wide community events, the likes of which I could not imagine and had never seen. Then they explained how the administration had systematically dismantled these community functions and made the school a barren, privatized place, and in my opinion, a force of gentrification within our community. Then the club's person got fired. I still wanted to replace AS. I recognized a severe need on our campus, saw people in clubs and organizations all working for the same cause but not working together. I went to a clubs fair and met all the clubs that seemed interested. Are they down? And I just kind of made a quick judgment and went and talked to a bunch of them. And I got an email address and a meeting time. And then I arranged to go into their club and discuss a coming General Assembly we were organizing. In each club meeting, I found one person who had access to their email list and got the clubs to vote to forward my emails to their whole list. Then we called a giant General Assembly in the same room that AS met right after their meeting. We had no permission for any of this, and the administration contacted me and tried to have me cancel the meeting, but I said it was going to happen whether they liked it or not. Even though I helped start it, there were no leaders at this point, and it was going down. About 70 student leaders showed up. Turned into a big complaint fest over the state of our higher education. We even got the perspective of AS members who we had kind of incidentally trapped in the room, and they told us to hold the hands of the administration and not burn bridges. We had amazing dialogue with them on how the administration had burnt the bridges. This highlighted the problems we were facing. It started to create a shared vision, and then the General Assembly decided it was going to keep meeting. And I stopped attending those meetings. I was too busy. I was the president of one club, treasurer of another. I was doing a bunch of other extracurriculars and a lot of work on our student union board of directors. I used the networks that we had created through the Humboldt, So this General Assembly started referring to itself as a student union, not to be confused with the student union board of directors, and it was affiliating with the California Student Union. I used the networks I had created from the Student Union General Assembly and my clubs as resources for my work on the Student Union Board of Directors as I tried to stop negative influences that had taken over our Student Union Board of Directors. Particularly, it used to be student-run, but it became now only half students and half administrators. They had sold our student-owned bookstore to the Follett Corporation and used the money from selling the bookstore to renovate our third gymnasium into a recreation and wellness center. They abused loopholes in our open meetings law to keep students in the dark and ignore their input. So I got a mob of angry students to show up to tell the administration to listen to us and respect our wishes. It was our student union after all. We then were able to modify the bylaws of our student union auxiliary and got several open meetings updates incorporated. And I looked at your agenda, and I think that what you'll be voting on a little bit later is an extension of that work. So I saw a lot of messed up stuff in there, but I saw even more messed up stuff as a journalist for our AS program doing the newsletter editing. The Follett Corporation was taking over our fundraising mechanisms. We had a cap and gown rental program, and they're moving in on it. I was writing an article on it, but then I got censored. We are also spearheading a community garden project that was designated to us from our AS. This was originally a student-led community garden project, but then got abducted by AS as they were trying to represent students. Who can blame them? But they took a grassroots initiatives, and instead of just doing it or empowering students to do it, they tried to go through administrative channels. And 4.5 years later, there's still no community garden at HSU. The investigative journalism I did there also got censored. And it wasn't because it was hostile. As far as I could tell, I was just speaking the truth. The administration, however, particularly our AS executive director, had created a culture of fear amongst our AS programs. A culture that actively ignored and censored the truth. Through all of this, I saw AS members continually get their souls crushed. Through our student union, the board of directors, through Normal, and through our AS program. People were joining trying to help students, and they ended up doing nothing but making stuff worse. They were co-opting authentic sentiments and letting them get bogged down in red tape. Through all my work, people kept suggesting to me that I run for AS president. As I was working with members in the Student Union General Assembly on other projects, I mentioned to them that I was being told to run for president, and they told me that they were putting together a slate to run for our student government. They needed a president. I thought I could fix the problem, so I ran as their president. And that election cycle broke records. There's normally 12 people that would run for about 16 seats, with only 1 or so contested seats, and the rest were empty and then got appointed. This time we had 40 people running for 16 seats, and I ran against 6 other people for president. Our issue-based campaign proved more powerful than anything we did directly through AS. We got students aware, we got them engaged, and we got feedback on the problems they faced and even solved a couple of the problems. Once in AS, however, the administration's corrupting influence and culture was just too penetrating. It dominated our ability to generate any authentic student power. We got strapped down by too many meetings and the loudest voices in the room. Our unity got torn apart. Selective members of our council who had counterproductive agendas were empowered by the administration with what I like to term as red tape machetes, while the rest were villainized. The agenda set by the administrative culture ignored our problems. Problems such as virtually nobody votes in AS. Just about nobody knew who we were or what we did. Our student government appeared just for show, and the administration, the ones with the real power. Our representatives seemed to show up just because they were paid stipends, and they're paid just enough to keep them showing up, but not enough to do any real work. For this, they relied on our executive director, or general manager, depending on the organization. And our executive director was technically employed by our Student Affairs Administration, not employed by our AS. And they let the executive director do the work, which was very problematic. One of the reasons, one of the many, we were drawing unhealthy amounts from our reserves. And at that rate, we were soon to go into the negative. From what I can tell in hindsight, this budget deficit was due to mismanaging by our executive director and the lack of engagement by prior AS representatives. To solve the problem, in our finance committee, I was helping to lead an audit of all of our programs in our budget. And we were also working to implement participatory budgeting, which I'll get into in a little bit. Without me realizing what was happening, however, our executive director arranged a finance committee meeting that it conflicted with my schedule. So then our ED then sold the finance committee on raising fees on students to compensate for the ED's own mistakes, executive director ED. And to stop the audit, raising the fees on students would also stop the audit that would show the ED's mistakes. Then the culture more or less strong-armed our AS into raising fees on students. Basically, our slate had great ideas going into AS for helping students, and we had the skills to do so. But ultimately, our group resigned en masse. It became apparent anything we did would only strengthen belief in a system set up for co-opting students. We became the heart of freedom, fueling the machine, giving people false hope, in a system set up to do little positive and lots of negative. Oh no. After resigning, to our surprise, our resignations were buried from the news, and we were burnt out. So we focused on grassroots organizing and instead of trying to fight the AS raising fees and the administration sabotaging students. This was a good choice. Also, did y'all hear that the AS president of San Jose State just resigned? In their resignation letter, they said, "Where I once found myself loudly condemning things I felt strongly about, I soon became a part of the machine, whose my primary job was to maintain the status quo and defend the respectability of an institution even when it was wrong." Turns out at San Jose State, their AS is now working to help raise fees on students. Also, their AS fired their executive director in the beginning of the year for embezzling funds. I don't mean to... Nothing. Yeah. It did not sound like their hiring of a new ED was very productive, unfortunately. But hiring a new ED would have been my dream come true as AS president. And if the right one was hired, it would have solved most of our problems. We needed a resource, not a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Jacob,
Yeah, how am I doing?
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Like 11 minutes.
Oh, cool.
5.
Wait, 5 minutes?
No, at 5 o'clock we got to move on.
Okay, cool. So what is the role of a student in today's society? Is it for finding oneself? Is it for increasing democracy? Is it to get a job? And what does student governance look like? Is it the classic corrupt union that pretends to help their constituents but instead sides with the employer class? Or is it the organization of student community in a manner that empowers students and helps the students' communities? After I resigned, I went on tour. I tried to meet with all my old friends in AES across the state. Nobody was available aside from 2 people from CSU East Bay. Everybody else seemed too exhausted from their work. People in the California Student Union, however, were eager to meet with me. With the California Student Union, I met people with serious governance skill sets. There was abundant knowledge, powerful connections, and I got plugged in to happenings across all 3 school systems, the nation and the world. This made me an asset to get hired and get a job after college, much more than AS ever would have, as a line on my resume or a letter of recommendation. I became more effective at what I do. Through my work with the California Student Union, I got sent to 2 conferences, ones that the student governments should be attending. These were much better than the Panetta Institute and CS Unity. I went to a participatory budgeting conference in Oakland and a dialogue and deliberation conference in Washington, D.C. And the D.C. conference was filled with all the biggest players of the nonprofit industrial complex. It was really quite impressive. For participatory budgeting, though, what is participatory budgeting? CSU Chico's associated students already uses a watered-down version of it. Every student gets to vote on how $15 of their ASI fee is allocated. They get to decide if $5 goes to their favorite sorority, 10 to their favorite organization, all 15 to the AS General Fund, whatever. You get to decide on how that 15 is spent. And CSU Chico's AS consistently has the highest voter turnout of the 23 CSU ASs. I think their average is about 20%. I think this is achieved because every club and organization wants the funding, so they all work to engage students and rally them to vote. This rally to vote is not a top-down effort from the AS, but bottom-up and helps capture the essence of democracy. At the participatory budgeting conference, I came upon several amazing tools that trump Chico's. I'm going to pull one up right now. This is one of my favorite tools I learned about and is currently in development. There are several others already developed. This one's called Co-Budget. I contacted them and they agreed to give me a demo so that I could show you all. You can vote on exactly how your money is allocated using this tool. It can be just the board of directors or the whole student body. Then you can craft proposals through these buckets. So you see here, the main thing, so a lot of this would already be allocated. But then you have right here, and this is the stuff that's unallocated. People create buckets. For AS, I'd imagine you'd have a formalized process for creating a new bucket. So it's basically a proposal or a line item. And then every single student could vote on how their fee was allocated. I'm going to choose to fund, see if I can get this to work. It's not working. Well, dang. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to fund the insurance bucket with $10 of my $100 left. And then it'll go just a little bit. And then here. So it doesn't like this mouse. So let's do the rest of my bucket, 190. And you see how it goes way up, and so on. So you get a really visual representation. It's really amazing. I'd done some budget balancing simulators back in the day, and I was like, why can't we vote like that? And then bam, they made it. And the effects of it are amazing. Woo! Like, just imagine the student engagement and strategic ability from such grassroots brainstorming. Like, this is true participatory democracy. It makes budgeting fun, easy, and effective, and the effects are exponential. Like with CSSA, they just passed the student involvement and representation fee. This means every student on your campus is going to have to pay probably $4 a year, is that right? Yeah. And the SIRF, student involvement representation fee, has been hugely controversial for a variety of reasons. To me, it's controversial because it doesn't appear that any budget has been set up for this huge influx of money the organization is about to receive. My connections with the employees union and even through CSSA have told me that it appears that this purpose, or what I believe appears the purpose of this money, is so that CSSA members can give themselves scholarships and have it go directly into their own pockets. And whether that's the full case or not, it is undoubtedly going to result not in more student organizing or generating power, and rather just fulfilling the will of the administration. The whole thing just reeks of puppeting from their executive director, who is actually not employed by CSSA, and rather is employed by the Chancellor's office, much like my AAS in Humboldt at least. This executive director was literally crying in front of CSSA, begging them to pass this. It just smells bad to me. So I'm talking to you, CSULA AS, because y'all have been consistently the most radical and badass of all the CSU ASs that I've seen. Your students, the CSU system, and California Student Union, and even I, desperately need you. We need you to become the agents of positive participatory democracy that you have within you already. We need an AS to lead the way and set an example for others. Like if participatory budgeting works for Chico, what's stopping other ASs from following their example and then doing it better? What happens here affects all the other 23 campuses, along with all 3 school systems, the UCs, the JCs, and the CSUs. Students need your help. Fees are getting higher, and the quality of education has been spiraling down. Faculty and staff need your help. They are subject to Walmart-style employment techniques. Their adjuncts are at an all-time high. Staff is understaffed, and they're all scared of losing their jobs. Administrators even need your help. They are becoming increasingly detached from their universities and students. They are becoming absorbed by the powerful, oligarchic, capitalist elites that are ruining our society. They are dependent on these donors instead of being creative and working with the students. If we had real student organizing, imagine the funds we could raise. We could get a state ballot measure passed and make sure we have funding forever. Our society needs your help. Students across the world and history are the agents of positive societal change, from civil rights to anti-war to democracy. But it all starts with empowering yourselves. So, I want to know what problems you all face, and I'd be happy to share my resources with you that I have access to if you desire. And please contact me. You can find me on Facebook or on our California Student Union Facebook group. I put my email up there. I'll put it up again. And thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right, we have about 3 minutes for questions, so I can definitely take a couple of questions if you have any. Jacob.
You can ask me later too.
You're gonna pass out contact information?
I actually left my cards up north.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can send me an email with all stuff. I can forward it to everyone.
Yes, please.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a really great resource. He's super knowledgeable. One of the most knowledgeable people I ever met through AS and student government, and really is a great resource. So please use Jacob. The California Student Union is super excellent too. Definitely much more willing to speak up about things that are uncomfortable to talk about than a lot of people in society.